it lingers on forever as part of the American tradition. But where is our gold? The banks have been safe, the depression emergency is over, etc., and gold continues in the hands of the government. It seems to me the libertarian monetary policy must be, in addition to not inflating, etc., during inflations and recession, must be first and foremost to get the gold back to us, to make the government disgorge the gold which it stole from us and return it to us. I mean, it's fairly simple as all that. In exchange for the paper they unloaded upon us, we want the gold back. So the libertarian, it seems to me, must call, not like Friedman does, for the cutting loose totally from gold, but for the restoration of gold to us as the free market money or the people's money, whatever you want to call it, whatever slogan you want to bring to it. And so, in conclusion, on some of the most vital economic issues of our day, Milton Friedman stands in flagrant opposition to economic freedom. His neighborhood effect makes a crucial concession, which in other hands can and does justify almost any type of government intervention in the market economy. His negative income tax proposal has, in the name of efficiency, paved the way for a disastrous measure, guaranteed annual income, that bids fair to wreck our entire economic system. His monetary view, seemingly close to ours, actually provides a rationale for an open invitation to inflation, as well as an apologia for total governmental control of the money supply. Finally, Milton Friedman stands athwart our path, blocking us when we call for restoration of the gold money that was stolen from us in the Depression emergency. In all these crucial cases, Friedman stands in direct opposition to the libertarian solution and the libertarian policy. No, Milton Friedman is not our leader. Thank you.
That was brilliant, Murray, and I think you buried him, only I'm afraid it won't be in the front pages of the papers. And it's probably announcing his death in advance.
Undoubtedly.
Unfortunately. We do have time for a few questions. The evening is late. And, of course, we could discuss this for a whole semester, as you covered so many things so well. But we'll entertain a few questions. Yes, sir.
Murray, with regard to your division of the world into a zillion states, could a Friedmanite offer the following objection? That if this were to happen, if we were to get down to that point, the money of these little tiny, the Rothbard and so forth, would not find acceptance and would be gradually driven out of existence until the point was reached, let's say, where you were necessarily restored to the 100 states.
I think it might be true of the zillion, but it certainly wouldn't be true of local governments, that sort of thing. In other words, if New York City issued its own money, it could carry on for a long, long time. I think it would be true of me, but I don't think it would be true of local governments. I mean, you have local government bonds that are in existence, that sort of thing. So I don't think that...
Subway token.
There would be a natural limit to the possibility.
Well, the natural limit would only be the fluctuating exchange rates. That would be the only limit. In other words, in the sense that if New York City inflated New York City money to a great extent, then its exchange rate would fall in relation to other cities and states, etc. So that would be a check on it, but it wouldn't, if there were...
The check to this, people would not be willing to spend that much time figuring out.
I hope so.
All the problems with free banking.
Yeah.
Yes,
All right. Assume something very unrealistic, admittedly, that the government accepts Friedman's ideas and inflates the money supply at a given point every year, that is, let's say 3%, and sticks to that. And then it does that. In other words, it takes them literally and doesn't go beyond that. Something unrealistic, I assume. But and everybody knows this and anticipates that this will happen from year to year, because it does happen and the anticipation proves correct. What is the consequence on the economy of that kind of continued situation? Assuming it was to be able, it wasn't continued for a period.
Assuming everybody knew this.
Yeah, well, people get to know. Everybody knows it's the policy of the government always to increase the money supply by a given percentage every year. It announces that, and assume that the government sticks to that. Yeah. I say it's unrealistic, but just for the sake of argument, what is the effect of that?
Well, at the very least, you have this effect. You have the business cycle would be at work again. In other words, you have the credit expansion, overinvestment in the higher orders of production, capital goods, and recession because of it. What the government would then do after a recession hits.
Your interest rate would be discounted permanently.
Right. It'd certainly be that. In other words, it wouldn't be roses either, because it would still be this business cycle effect, as it was in the 1920s, really, when the price level remained.
Just think of what had happened to 100-year bonds under such a situation. Is there a question over here?
Yes. Are you familiar with the Korean Optimum Quantity Money in USA, where he dwells very briefly on the probable beneficial aspects of having no inflation and having no money printing whatsoever?
I understand he does. I didn't read the article, but I think what he does, I'm just sort of quoting from reviews, that he concedes that in theory it might be better to have a falling price level. His argument is kind of peculiar. It's that you're saving resources that will be tied up in cash holdings, I think. I think that was the argument. It's kind of an odd argument, but it's all right. I mean, if he wants to accept that policy, okay. But then he says, of course, and politically it's not practical, and he goes back to his 3-4%. But it's true. I think he seems to have receded there. Who knows? Maybe in another 15 years he might accept the whole idea of falling price level.
Yes, sir?
In the 1930s, Roosevelt took our gold. Do you foresee that they'll pass a law outlawing the ownership of silver and eventually all the metals to have plastic coins?
Well, I mean, they've practically gotten the plastic coins as it is. I mean, so, you see what happened to silver certificates. They were eliminated. The last bit of hard money in the currency system is eliminated.
What I'm getting at is that you can't keep on inflating the economy ad infinitum, because you'll have your penny with the intrinsic value of the metals worth more than the penny eventually.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to
that will have to be called.
Yeah, you have to pull in little tough paper tickets.
Yeah.
What are Rothbards? Are they metal or are they?
I wouldn't have the money to have metal. It's paper tickets.
Yes, Mr. Hertz?
Wouldn't you say that if the inflation were continued at a steady annual rate, you'd have something, as a matter of fact, you have right now, which is a recession with rising prices?
Yeah.
And that if you continue the inflation now at the same rate as before, the recession wouldn't go back to a boom. You'd simply have a long-range continuing recession. So in a sense, it's an addictive effect of the inflationary policy we've had up till now, which causes the government to have to continue to expand the inflation at a greater and greater rate in order to maintain the boom.
That's right.
So the Friedman theory of 3% per annum wouldn't accomplish the purpose of eliminating or flattening out the business cycle. The only way you can do it, considering the malinvestment problem, is to increase the rate of inflation year by year, so that eventually it reaches a point where it's 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50%, and where the interest rates eventually disappear, where people just don't even have a use for money.
That's a very good point. I should have mentioned that. But you have to keep accelerating the rate of inflation in order to keep it at the same level. It's like a treadmill. You have to keep going faster and faster to keep on the same pace. And it would crack things up in that
What these fellows don't recognize is the one time that they came nearest to achieving their goal was the period 1927-1928.
Right.
And it's what brought on 29.
Right.
So that if they achieved what they're seeking to achieve, they would blow the... Right. Let's try this gentleman here.
Isn't it true that under a completely free market, if the elasticity of supply of gold was greater than the elasticity of supply of all other goods, we'd have an increasing price level rather than a decreasing price level as you said?
Yeah, you usually have a supply of gold keeps going up a little bit, over the years. But usually the increase in the supply of other goods is much greater than the increase in supply of gold. So that gold after all has to be after gold has to be mined and so forth. You don't find that many new sources.
Yeah, but then you're strictly limiting us to having a gold money.
No.
It doesn't matter if you had platinum or what have you. And strictly speaking, you're dedicated to the theory of these supply elasticities being the way you are. And it seems that we need a lot more evidence as to where they would be.
We don't need any evidence. The market takes care of all that. In other words, if the market that came to gold and silver as the best monies, because gold and silver had all these various qualities. They were divisible and durable, and they were more stable in supply than other goods, and a higher demand and a higher value per unit weight, and all the rest of it. And so, if the alchemists suddenly discovered a way to increase the supply of gold by 1 million times, they'd shift to some other metal.
Market conditions
Market
changes,
does it,
why
yeah, right.
you'd have a changed
Right.
commodity.
Right.
We take another question here.
Friedman wants to make the union subject to antitrust laws. And what would you do about the labor union so that we might have a declining wage level along with a declining price level, so that we're not forced, Federal Reserve is forced to always choose to inflate?
I'm not sure that Friedman is in favor of antitrust laws for unions. He might be, but I doubt it. But
So that's going the wrong way. Rather than have more intervention to curb the power of the unions, it's better to go the other way and repeal something like more.
Yeah, right. I mean, all we have to do is repeal the Wagner Act and the North LaGuardia Act, and that would settle the union question.
Mr. Johansson?
If we were to get back to the gold standard, would you recommend a higher price?
You mean in order to get back to the gold standard? Yeah, I think it seems to me the plausible way of doing it. In other words, to get back to the gold standard, you either have to, in this situation, you either have to deflate strongly or go back to gold at a higher price.
Well, wouldn't the market declare its own price for gold? I mean, you're setting a price for gold. I don't think that's...
No, I mean, see,
You
gold
can't have a price of
there's no
gold.
such thing as a price
That's
of gold.
right. So that it would take care of itself.
It's value.
But you
It's
have
not
to-
its
Right,
not
market
its
value.
price.
It would take care of
You
itself.
have to set the definition of gold. And since
You have to
we're
set
more
the
or less,
definition of
yeah,
a dollar or a
definition of
Rothbard
dollar, right?
or whatever you use, unless
Right.
you started pricing in quantities of gold. This
Yeah.
is worth a half ounce of gold or something like
Right.
this.
So the first step has to be sort of arbitrary. You can sort of pick your own definition.
Well, you could
It's,
follow what Mises
yeah.
recommends and,
That's one way
and
to
get
go.
a market.
That's
Or you
exactly
could,
right. The market system is the only way.
or you could simply make it $100 an ounce or something like that.
But that wouldn't
It doesn't-
last very long. It would last 10 years. You'd be back just where you were
No,
unless you went to a
so.
market system of price.
Well, yeah. I mean, that would be an addition. At least we got the gold back.
At any price.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Hertz, we'll make this the last one.
I ask a question. If we were as smart, and I don't mean by we, the people in this room, as we are now, in 1929, would a continued expanding inflation on the part of the Federal Reserve System have prevented the Depression and put us into a long-range rising inflation instead, something like Germany had in 21 and 22 or what have you?
You say I've been willing to inflate heavily then. It's possible. It's very difficult to know. I think one thing is we were hindered by the fact we were on the gold standard then. And gold was flowing out pretty rapidly. So you have to have and banks were collapsing. Don't forget, in those days, banks were part of a market system, so the banks folded pretty often. I think it was before the days of bank deposit insurance, which incidentally Friedman loved. I think it's the greatest single innovation in the banking system. I should have mentioned that. This monstrous system of bank deposit insurance, which means it gives the banks carte blanche. The government underwrites every deposit up to $10,000, $15,000 now. So nobody thinks the banks are unsafe, and that's it. The banks are given a blank check. In those days, banks were collapsing pretty quickly. They couldn't have inflated more. You would have had to. Well, I mean, the people were pulling in bank deposits. People would line up in the morning, at 6 in the morning or something, try to get their money out before the banks would collapse, and this precipitated bank runs. So you would have had to go off the gold, do what Roosevelt did, go off the gold standard, impose bank deposit insurance. That was completely renovate and statize the banking system before you could have this permanent inflation.
On the day before Roosevelt took office, I was in the Bowery Savings Bank, and people were all lined up on all the windows right out to the street, taking their money out and their gold certificates and putting it down in the safe deposit vaults where they thought it was safe.